Hey everybody, what's going on? Helmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to do a bit of a state of the meta video and talk about the game as a whole, as I think there have been a lot of player frustrations over the last few months, and I think they were expressed very well by Hashinshin in the most recent video that was posted. People clipped him kind of losing it during his stream, and that video has been cause for a lot of discussion in the community, and a lot of people found a voice with what Hashinshin was saying in the video, even if he wasn't necessarily presenting it in the best format possible. So today I just wanted to kind of look at the complaints that players have been having about the last few months of play and kind of talk about my thoughts on the subject, because I think that there's a lot of player frustration, but at the same time I think that most players are honestly okay with things. Maybe very dedicated players are not having a good time, but at the same time I think that most of the community is doing okay with the way things are. So let's go ahead and first talk about marksman, which is kind of the elephant in the room right now. A lot of people are not happy with playing against marksman, with playing as marksman. Itemization is too cheap, some people say. They come online too early, some people say. And while I can totally agree with a lot of things that people are saying, I think marksmen have fairly cheap items for a class that is supposed to be mostly item dependent and very late game dependent. I think that there is still fundamentally an issue with what people are saying. Now, first of all, marksmen are already going to be a hard class to balance just because all of their damage is auto attacks, which cannot be dodged, which is very difficult to deal with in the first place. And that's one of the reasons I think marksmen are intended to be a late game class. You can't outplay them, so the best thing you can do is make it so that they have, at the very least, have to scale up and get items to be a threat. However, if marksmen are only a late game class, they don't even come online until the mid game, and then by that point it's too late. The problem you run into is that marksmen don't feel in charge of their own destiny. There's essentially nothing that they can do in the early game in order to ensure that they have a successful game. They're entirely dependent on the rest of their team doing well and giving them the opportunity to scale up. And sometimes, if the rest of the team does their job too well, the marksman doesn't even feel like they got to play the game because the game ends too quickly. Sure, they got the win, but they didn't really do anything besides farm. And it sort of leads to a situation like the ADC in 2K17 LUL meme kind of dictated, which is that marksmen are so weak in the early game, they do nothing in the early game, that it's sort of like, what's the point of even playing this class? And because marksmen are still a mandatory class in the game, it leads to a situation where at least one person is always feeling terrible. However, on the flip side, if you make marksman itemization cheap and you allow them to turn on by early mid game, or potentially even in the early game once they finish their first couple of items, then it leads to a situation where they're too impactful, because anytime a late game class is able to access their power early, it becomes a problem, because it just is difficult to then deal with that champion, because they're only going to get stronger. They're not going to fall off, unlike some champions who have a strong early game but a weak late, like Renekton. If you have a strong mid and a strong late, and all you have to do is get through the first bit of the game, there are difficulties with dealing with that, and there are difficulties with the design of that. Now, I don't know a good solution to this problem. If you nerf marksmen and if you nerf their itemization, we end up with a situation where marksman players again feel like they're not in control of their destiny. But if you leave things as they are, I think they still remain very impactful. So I don't know what the solution here would be, other than hitting the outliers and trying to, or buffing marksmen that have traditionally been better in the early game, such as Lucian or Corki, and making it so that they feel better about playing in the early game, and that way you have options. But I don't have a good solution for that problem. Next up, I want to talk about the jungle. Hashinshin had a specific problem with the jungle, and a lot of players have kind of been talking about it in the wake of the video, because their thought is that the jungle is too impactful in the early game, that they have to do nothing but gank, and when they do gank, they almost always get a kill. They exert too much pressure after their very first clear, etc., etc. The list goes on. Now, the problem I think I have with this is that it ignores the farm-heavy jungle days, where junglers had things like Devour, and when camps respawn very quickly, and when it felt like they almost didn't have to interact with the rest of the map. All the jungler really needed to do is just farm for 30 minutes straight, and then they could come out of the jungle and just kill you and your entire team. And that felt worse than having a lot of early jungle pressure. I think that having early pressure junglers being meta is actually more fun, especially for most players, because it means that the jungler is interacting with the rest of the map. They're not just AFK farming. They are actually going out and doing things. And it means that as players, there's something more for you to worry about in the lane. I know a lot of people who play this game, myself included, are big fans of the 1v1. All I want to do is stay top lane and kill the enemy top laner over and over again, and the jungler interferes with me being able to do that. but it does make things more interesting. It makes it so that early game champions don't have the option of just saying, yeah, I'm just going to stomp you for 15 minutes because the jungler will never come. You always have to have that fear in the back of your mind. And it makes the game more interesting and more enjoyable, and it's not like the jungler doesn't pay a single cost for a gank. Because the removal or reduction of catch-up XP was a thing at the beginning of preseason, if a jungler doesn't get a payoff for a gank, if they show up and don't blow a summoner spell or don't get a kill, they're now behind, and they won't catch up as quickly because the catch-up XP was nerfed pretty much across the board. So it means that junglers need to be turning a profit on their ganks. Which, if you play safe, you ward up, you waste their time, they can fall behind. They do pay a price for these missed ganks. Now, they may be able to still gank often, but if they gank often and don't get enough for them, it still doesn't really work out for them. So I'm actually okay with the current situation. I don't think it's really that big of a deal. I know people disagree with me, though, so if you do think jungle is too impactful, go ahead and let me know down in the comments section below. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about the state of top lane. I think that, yes, bruisers are in kind of a bad spot at the moment, but I don't think it's as terrible as some people think. The recent precision changes are actually really, really key because traditionally top laners didn't really want that much attack speed, but if they went to precision, they were going to have something like 12% attack speed, which means that, sure, you want to take press the attack, or possibly even fleet footwork, but you didn't want that much attack speed, you wanted more durability. So it meant that pretty much every top laner almost had to take grasp, because what other options did you have? So the split for precision now granting partial attack speed and then partial of the other stat that other trees have is really nice, because it means that top laners can now still get a little bit of attack speed, which they don't care about, but have the durability as well from their path, which is really nice. And it means that press the attack and fleet footwork are now options for these champions up the top lane, which has done a lot to sort of ease the problem that these bruisers and aggressive divers have been having. Now, the Fervor rework is coming as well. I believe Riot have stated it should be out in 8.6, so I think that'll go a long ways towards making the class feel playable again, but right now I really don't think is necessarily in that bad of a spot, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I think that it could be better, but it's definitely significantly better than it was at the beginning of the season, so... But anyways, those are just kind of my thoughts on everything. Now, I'm obviously not like the greatest person who's ever played this game and knows everything about it, but I think for the moment at least, we're in a reasonable spot, and I think that while there are complaints, I don't think that the game isn't as terrible of a spot as everyone keeps making it out to be. But again, these are all just my thoughts on the subject. If you totally disagree with me, go ahead and let me know down in the comment section below. Would love to hear why you guys are thinking that the game currently sucks, or what the issues with the game are, and we can have a conversation about it. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for more Grab the Lantern content, you can check out my blog, link down in the description. I upload an article just about each and every single day for your enjoyment. Finally, as a last heads up, there will be no podcast uploaded this Friday, as I will be out of town at Katsucon. If you're there, come say hi. But you can also look forward to regular content resuming on Monday. Once again, thank you guys so very much. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.